Hello everyone and welcome to this video. So today I want to talk about the hard version of the Calanthia Raid and do a bit of a how to Calanthia Raid out of this. Why am I doing this even though there's already quite a few guys? I figured what we're missing is a how to do this from support perspective. Because there are certain mechanics or certain scenarios where I, as the healer of the group, know, oh, this is going to be happening in a second. Maybe I should do this and this and this before. Or else everyone else is going to fuck up. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be covering this video in like timestamps, talking about the first, second, and third boss, and show you guys how my group does it. And add in a bit, okay, what am I doing in specific scenarios? Alright, to start it, I need to talk about passives and mastery. Because I figured if I'm going to be talking about skills and what to use, I need to at least get us all on a common basis to some point. So my passives are kind of the same during the entire raid. Depending on the context, I switch those two in and out. For example, if I feel like, this is going good, I can use more attack speed, or if I'm like, maybe I need to be a bit more tanky, this is not going too great, I switch those two in and out. And then on my mastery, I'm not gonna go into detail on this, I'm kind of saving that for a different video. Feel free to pause the video, yes. First boss, what skills to use, what guardians, what is beneficial for our team. I kind of made different groups. This is the first one. It's what I would call the buffy supportive group. As you can see, I kind of modified the time for punishment, the blessed berry, and the clay salvation into buffing powers instead of healing or mitigation powers. That is kind of because the first boss is very damage heavy. There is 2 DPS checks, and then in the end you kind of want to kill the boss before he kills you. So in other words, the party has to deal a lot of damage in a fixed amount of time, and I noticed I don't need that many heals on this boss, so I'm trying to support more by doing this. Then on the second group is kind of the heals we then have left. The swift healing, our main single target heal, the fountain of life, which is also our mana source. Like if we notice that someone is running low on mana, I usually place that under them just to make sure they have a bit of mana incoming. And then the flash wave, which is more or less the main AoE heal. In the next group we have the ray of disaster, the touch of despair, and the blitz. It's kind of the supportive, well, or more like the utility group. Because the ray of disaster and the touch of despair in my setup go a bit with the deadly marker. I'm running the passive with the touch of despair, the vampiric, that does heal. But to be fair, it doesn't do that much on our Seeker. But I like to run them together simply because the ray of disaster helps with the deadly marker to get that up. And the touch of despair I kind of spam whenever it's off cooldown. The blitz, on the other hand, I use most of the time either to blitz the flash wave or the clay salvation. It depends a bit when I notice, okay, do I need another heal right now, or do I have time to set another buff? Then our last group is the invincible wall, the only mitigation we're running. This is mainly to make everyone a bit more tanky, because especially in the second phase there's going to be a lot of roll blocks and the time is a bit stuffed, so DPS might not take them or are too focused on their rotation to block everything, so I like to spam that. And then lastly, yeah, with the guardians, it's kind of a tie between those two. I would say it depends a bit what the other supports, like the other tank for example, is running, and depending on that then I make my choice, what do I bring. Alright, so I figured the easiest way to explain this is by showing how my group does it. First of all, we kind of split the area in half. Here's the entrance, there's the exit, and then one party kind of covers on each side. We have pins here, 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 like there, and here. And each pin has 2 players assigned, which kind of will focus on the 2 pillars around here. With that I mean interacting with the pillars, and in the later phase when we hit 50%, shooting the orbs into the pillars, but I will come to that in a second. here's the tank. So I, as the healer of the tank party, like to be either like here or here, at least if we're tanking in this direction. Otherwise, here and here. Simply so I have the tank in my reach. Then one of the first mechanics, which we are skipping right away, but you will see it in a second, is the eye mechanic. As I said, you're gonna see it at 50% again. So what we're doing is we're hitting 90% and we're phasing with the 85 right into the fear. On the fear, you basically want to make sure that you spread out the ranged people, go as far back as they can, and the melees try to not overlap, because if you overlap, you fear the people and then they run around aimlessly and fear everyone else, and it's going to turn into a giant mess. And what you saw just now was a first block. The first out of 3. It's a stationary block, so you just hit your block and off we go. There, that was the first one. There is the second one. And the last one is a roadblock. And what you kind of need to make sure of is that you hit your counter in between, because if you don't hit your counter, you will not be able to block in time again. So you kind of want to make sure to reactivate this. So if you're a class that needs to be in a certain range for the boss to hit this again, you need to make sure that is possible. Because you can face tank them, as you can see, I face tanked the last one here right now. But ideally you want to prevent this. And what I like to do as a healer is to apply either the shield or the flash wave on the people. Simply because there's always going to be someone who is not blocking or who misses one of the blocks. And it's just safer to heal them up instantly. After the blocks, we have the pillar mechanic. It's the same as in the easy version, just more pillars. Everyone gets a colored circle. Mine, for example, is blue. There's some red ones. And first, you just want to go and interact with the pillars. That is why I said we have people assigned to each pillar around here, or like to each section, which is why I'm directly going here, because I was like, okay, there's no one here, so I will go here. Here I'm basically just making sure with flash waves and shields that everyone is kind of at least on top of half of their health, because after this, there you saw the first roadblock is what we call the Rancor mechanic. So what is gonna happen, the boss is somewhere on the tank, on the arena, there's the tank, and then he just jumps back into the middle with the first roadblock and everyone's gonna get like pushed. After this, we have what we call the Rankerwood mechanic. Rankerwood simply because it's similar to the one you have in the Rankerwood dungeon. What is a very easy way to do this mechanic is that when you look at the floor, there's these lines here, the golden ones. And on the very first, you want to stand like a good step back from that line. There we go, that is the first one, a good step back from the line. Then you go in a bit, I always go to the line because I know it's safe. And you go in a bit more. At least this is the way how you do it when you're ranged. If you're melee, you have to obviously do it the other way around. You go out, then out, back in. And what we do is we don't touch the pillars, ideally, until after the third Rankerwood. So like, first block, he jumps into the middle, and then 3 more blocks. This is the last. And then we kind of decide in voice channel, ideally, which color is gonna do the mechanic. The blue ones are roadblocks, the red ones are stationary blocks. Why are we doing it after the last Rankerwood? Simply because we noticed that if you do it before, people might get stunned. even though like the green shit here is not there anymore, the game kind of still thinks it's there. And people will get, like, for example, Ninja over here just caged. And to prevent that, it's just safer to do the mechanic first, and then you have enough time to do the pillars. Here we have the mechanic that kind of is the first mechanic you see, unless, like our party, you have more damage. It's the so-called eye mechanic. So what happens here is that the furthest player from the boss, which is ideally the healer, because the healer doesn't need to focus on doing damage, so they can actually stand far and look, okay, am I the furthest? Where should I position? So yeah, you get the eye on top of your head, the boss is gonna jump a bit, and everyone takes a bit of AoE damage. So ideally, you wanna have the flash wave on them, or at least a shield or something, so they directly heal up and you don't need to worry about that. And then after he does the jumping part, he is gonna shoot 2 of these lines that usually go on the tank, 1, 2. You wanna make sure you roll block them, or at least try to walk out of them, because as you can see, they apply stacks on my head. And if you get too many stacks, you're gonna get caged. You kind of want to prevent that. On 50%, it's a bit special because he's gonna do that mechanic twice. So that's why I'm here already walking to the back again, because I'm already anticipating, okay, he's gonna do it again. Where do I stand? So what happened is we skipped it. We went right into the DPS check. You can see it here, he has a shield. He applied the shield. What is a bit troublesome for us in this scenario is that ideally you want to have him doing that when he's in the middle of the arena. Why? Because, yeah, you're gonna see that in a second. Let's just keep going. What I try to do here as the healer is just hit all my support buttons. As I said earlier, I'm trying to bring mainly buffs to make sure the damage is on point. And here we have it. He we got through the DPS check and he spawned those balls around him. And these balls will get pushed by every block he's gonna do in the next, well, for the rest of the fight, they will get pushed out. The issue is if they hit these lines here on the outside, you can't push them back in anymore. So our scenario here, we are not right in the middle, so half of the balls are already spawning more to this side. Which is why, even though I'm assigned to this side of the map, I kind of sneak over here, because I figured I can hit a flash wave on them. Look, and I kind of just shoot them all back into the middle, because these balls are really sensitive. It takes like 1 hit and they're already choop all the way over there. So don't hit them unless you know what you're doing, or you like assigned to a certain pin. You will see that in a second. Additionally, what is kind of useful for those roadblocks, since they're really slow, is if you apply a flash wave or a shield to the players, because they're really focused on other stuff here right now, so they might not be looking at their health, or they don't have the time to block or whatever. And then there's this other mechanic where Firefly is standing right now. It's a circle that, to my experience, spawns random. There's 2. And if you don't walk out of that, you're gonna have 15 stacks of this stuff here immediately. Even if you walk out of it, sometimes you get unlucky. Let's see, look here. She got 14 stacks even though she walked out of it. And yeah, we forget too many stacks, not good. After this, we also get the fear mechanic, so make sure you spread out. And with the fear mechanic, we get our blocks again. Stationary, stationary, roadblock. There we have it. I didn't cast my concept, I was going for the roadblock and it didn't work. Which is why I said make sure you have some heal on the party, or at least some mitigation, or you know what you're doing. Here we have our pillars now, and what those 2 guys pretty much are doing on our side is shooting those electro balls into the pillars. I'm intentionally not touching the pillars, because I don't want to screw up what they're planning over there. So I'm kind of just standing here, casting some mitigations and some heals, but not the flash wave, because the flash wave, as I learned, pushes the orbs. So you could have casted the clays if you wouldn't have like made a buffer out of it instead of a heal. So I'll just make sure everyone is somehow surviving, and if I see somewhere to interact, I go interact. What we do here is we kind of make sure we had all the pillars interacted, more or less. This one is ongoing. So we use the power as DPS power, and what we're trying to do now is pretty much just burst it down. Because the issue is that the remaining orbs that you can see here and here, maybe let me put the big pointer here and here, will get pushed out even more. And we figured for our group it's just easier to kill the boss with the last percentage here faster, instead of making sure for every block that the balls are being pushed in. Maybe at this point 2 side notes, because I just noticed. You want to make sure that the tank is always tanking away from the pillars, because if the boss happens to slam a pillar, it's instantly a wipe. So you kind of need to look for an open space. That's why I said we like to tank to here, because if you get lucky, there's always like here or here an open space. And another thing, ideally, you want to make sure that you don't overlap red and blue circles. That is simply because the second you walk into each other, everyone's gonna get stuck. And they don't get higher, like you can keep standing on each other, but every time you walk in and out again, you get more. So what we like to do is we assign the melees, the blue ones to one side and the red ones to the other side, so we can kind of prevent them from completely screwing each other over. So back to what we were initially doing. We interacted with our pillars earlier, you saw it. The boss jumped back to the middle. We got the first roadblock of the Rancor. The Rancor, don't be fooled. It looks purple, it's exactly the same though. It's like in front of the line, and then you march closer to the line, and then you go all the way in. After that, you go and do the mechanic. Okay, what we have here is the second DPS check. It happens after you kill the, as you see in the mechanics on the outside. What we do here, you see it kind of instantly, is we use Guardian's remedies, everything. Even like the supports hit their Guardians on. Simply to make sure that even if somebody happens to be dying, which ideally is not the scenario, but even if we make it through the next 30% before he kills all of us. So what I do again, as I said, I have all my buffs slotted in instead of heals. I go close to party and make sure everyone is somehow surviving while I buff around. Here we have it again. Let's see, we can go a second back. There, we are getting the roadblock. So what I'm doing is I'm casting the shield. My flash whip is sadly on cooldown, but it doesn't matter. So I go a bit back and I make sure everyone gets that extra tankiness to them. Also here you can see here down here the circle. Let's see what's gonna happen. Yeah, look. CTLGC was standing right in it and instantly he has 24 stacks. So as the healer you kind of want to look out for him now, because it might be that he's gonna get caged and you need to save him. Because he's obviously focusing on doing damage. Then in this phase, once again, I'm the furthest player simply because I'm the support. I don't need to be focusing on my rotation that much like everyone else around here because they're trying to kill the boss. So what I do, I'm the furthest, I get the eye again. I go out, I make sure not too many people are standing in the way, roadblock. What he does here, you saw it, is that it's kind of random what the second block is, at least to my experience. Sometimes it's another roadblock, sometimes it's 2 stationary blocks, whatever. So as the healer of the group, what I like to do is make sure that everyone at least was somehow healed up before, or at least in between or right after, because as you can see, half the party screwed the second block. And from here, it's kind of just rinse and repeat. Slow blocks, mitigation, flash waves, buffing, running out of the circles, trying to bait. Here we have something, this is like always a sign, because sometimes it's a bit like when you don't know generally in this fight if he's gonna do the fear or the Rancor next, there's like some relatively easy way to tell, because whenever he jumps in the middle like that and stays right in the middle and you see a roadblock, you know, okay, out, Rancor out. So you go out, you go a bit in, you go all the way in, and you're safe. Easy. Here we have the fear right after the Rancor again. The guy is trying to kill us, but no way. With the 3 blocks, stationary block, roadblock. And the pillars again, and from the pillars on you have round about 30 seconds to kill him, or else it's a wipe. What technically would be the mechanic here is to have the orbs that you can see like all the way on the outside, all the way here. Shoot them into the pillars again, but yeah, as I said, we kind of skip that and prefer to just kill him instead. Alright, for the second boss, what to use, what skills, what guardians this time. Our first group, as you can see, got quite a bit smaller compared to the first boss. We're basically just running Time for Punishment, Deadly Marker, and Nature's Blessing here. Then our second group increased. We added the Clay Salvation back as a healing power, and kind of kept the rest, just added the mana modification to Swift Dealing because now we have the point. And since this fight is a bit longer, it comes in more handy. On the third group, our utility group, it's almost the same. We have Touch of Despair and Blitz like last time, we just don't have the Ray of Disaster anymore. Instead we have Purifying Touch. Purifying Touch has the handy ability that it can like unfreeze a person that is being frozen. Like in a certain amount of time and in certain timestamps during the fight, people will get like orbs on top of their head that indicate that they're gonna get frozen, and people will need to step into this circle to save them. And most of the time that doesn't happen, or like especially if it's a tank and it's in the middle of a mechanic, it doesn't happen. So what Purifying Touch does is it saves the tank from being stunned and locked in place. And then on the last group we have the 2 mitigations, Invincible Wall and this time Blessed Barrier, since it's no longer a damage buffer anymore. As for the Guardians, we have the same damaging Guardians as earlier, the supportive ones. But we also added the shielding one. Since we're a healer, we have a shit ton of mana. Like with this Guardian, I can easily get a shield between 14 and 17k HP, depending what runes I'm running. This comes in handy because sometimes as the healer, you're focusing on everything in this fight, but not your own stacks. And then you realize, oh, I've been running around with 30 stacks all the time. Maybe I should go cleanse. And in scenarios like this comes in really handy. Alright, as for the second boss, I personally prefer to be on the fire side, like over there's the ice side. Simply because I find it more challenging and that's more fun to heal, in my experience. But yeah, let's get going. Let's see what we do here. It's kind of like what I like to start with directly is the Flash Wave. This has the very simple reason that the Flash Wave is kind of my timer during the fight. Because it's set up in a way that when he does this mechanic here with the big circle that is starting to apply stacks on players, my Flash Wave is off cooldown. So what I do is I go back and I make sure to reapply it on everyone. So even though they're collecting stacks, they're ticking up instead of down. Then what comes next, you can see it here, there's a couple of circles on the floor, is a bit depending on what the boss feels like doing right now. But what you essentially on the circles want to do is go out, make sure you're not standing in it, and then you're safe. And after whatever mechanic he then did, it can be circles and it can be fireballs on the floor, I think we might see that later, is that there's going to be the furies, like the blocks. What I like to do for the furies is to make sure I, of course, still have the flash wave applied. Yeah. There we go, we still have the flash wave for a couple of seconds. I put something on the floor and then block. Because the thing is, you also need to cast your counter in between here, and there's always people who manage to not do that. So it's always convenient if you either put like a heal on the floor, or you have a shield, or a mitigation, or a flash wave, or ideally everything. Depending what you have, it's resource right now, but always make sure that you have something, because I can assure you there's always people who will not block this, or at least block only one. And after this, I then go back again to reapply the flash wave. Like, I really like this boss because the timing of the flash wave is awesome. So I apply the flash wave and the shield, and we make sure to walk to the middle. You maybe saw that just now, we have pins on the floor. What my party is doing is, or like our group is doing, we have one team, in this case the eyesight, because they have a bit easier mechanics. And what they do is they walk to the pins according to their party number. Like we sorted them before, the tanks are on 6, there's the 6. And they stand on their pins. And then the fireside just runs them over. Because with this, we can kind of make sure that everyone is cleansing this line. Because it happens sometimes if you just meet up in the middle that you think you cleansed it and you didn't, and then you instantly die. So this is just a way to make the mechanics safer in a way. If you cleanse it, you have this purple and you hear a tiny pling. And there's what I said earlier, look, you can cleanse the tank, even if the tank is not in your team, it comes in really handy, so you can run back. Yeah, what we have now is meteors. You basically just want to make sure you run out and you run somewhere where nobody else is running. That's pretty much it. After this, he applies the circle again. After the circle, you can make sure there is going to be a mechanic. So you want to at least have some heal or mitigation or whatever on the team, and rinse and repeat. What we have here is 50% on the ice guy, so we run over, do the DPS check. I as a healer run over to cleanse my stacks, but I have to make sure the tank's alive, so I usually keep the healing circle there and just come back instantly. And yeah, maybe something general, but I assume since this is more of a healer guide, on this bosses, you want to make sure that you have your damage fairly well balanced, because these lines need to be at the same time, or else one party is instantly gonna get wiped. So it kind of usually takes a couple of tries to set up 2 parties that have roundabout the same damage. So yeah, fortunately as the healer you don't really have that much to do with it, but you kind of have to keep an eye on it. For example, after the DPS check, we ask one party, the ones on the ice, to stop the damage so we can catch up on the fire side. Here we have it again. He applies the sucker and you can be sure that there is gonna be a mechanic. There we have it. Circles on the floor. I try to put some heals, another circle on the floor. And we get our blocks. 1 block, 2, and we run over to get our lanes. Here we have it again. The tank is almost frozen, so it might be good to unfreeze him there. And yeah, that's it for the first half. So what we have here is the second half, this time me coming from the ice side, not the fire side, because it was really hard to find like proper footage to explain the second half that is not completely messy, and I don't know, I felt like this one is a good deal. So what you maybe saw is that most of the team is just using auto attacks. That doesn't count for the healers, as you can see, but what we are doing is that we are trying to charge this by using auto attacks, because the boss is still losing health. And we figured we need the damage version of this to survive a mechanic. So the most interesting part, cough cough, of the fight is just standing here and shooting auto attacks at the boss. Yeah. Okay, what you maybe saw is since our skill is almost charged up, we decided to full DPS, but we're also taking stacks. Let's stop this for a second. We're also taking stacks. There's fire and ice stacks, and this time, even though there was fire on this side here earlier and ice on this side, it's the other way around. Why? Because the boss is facing the other way around, because the tank's here. That's why we have these tiny pins here on the floor to kind of remind ourselves that this is ice and here is fire, even though we could also look at the boss, but yeah. What happens here is pretty much just a mixture of the mechanics you saw before. There's, for example, the big circles, or we have these numbered circles here. Important here is, contrary to other dungeons, it doesn't matter how many people stand in there additionally. So there have to be at least 3, but it doesn't matter if there's more in there. And yeah, so what we do is we try to stack them. When we see that we get them, we at least try to go on top of each other. So we make sure that some of them get cleansed. And yeah, ideally you just try to survive here, because every person that is dead then has the issue that someone else will die for that later on, simply because of the line. You saw that maybe in the first 2 phases. If someone with a line is dead, the lined person will also die. And then here you already see a block. What the boss does is 4 blocks, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. It's like pong, 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 pong. You have to block at least one of them. It doesn't even have to be a perfect block to get like this orb on top of your head that you had in the first phase when you get the lines. So what our group does is that everyone goes to the side they were assigned to when we started. We can see it here pretty well. There's the 2 blocks, and then there's going to be 2 more. So in this scenario, since this is a different video than the first half of the boss, please pay attention to this. On the first half I was on this side because my party was fighting on this side, but in the second half, since this is a different fight and I was fighting on the ice side, I am going to this side. If it was like technically the same fight as the first half I showed you in the video, I would be going to this side according to our plan. So easy solution, just go to the side you were assigned to when you started the fight. And then you make sure to block there. And you get this orb on top of your head. Everyone's gonna cleanse. Important here, but not really the business of a healer, but still, is that someone has to go and cleanse the tank. Because the tank also has to go to one side, obviously, simply because there's 12 people. So someone, ideally you decided before who, In most of the scenarios, it's the person who played the second tank, or who is the second tank and is just DPSing with all the others on this side, goes to cleanse the tank, otherwise the tank is dead. But yeah, this is only really relevant when there's already some people dead, and you need to keep that in mind. Then there's this wave. Yeah, if you cleanse properly, you don't die to that. If not, you're instantly dead. You can block, it's not gonna help you. So why did we charge the ultimate earlier? You can see it after the first wave. There is these orbs here spawning in. Here, 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 here. And what we figured out is that you probably need to kill them all in order to survive the next wave that's gonna come in a bit. But if you hit them while you have the wrong stacks, like the fire stacks or the ice stacks, you take a lot of damage, and it might happen that you accidentally 3-shot yourself. So the approach is to use the power that you charged and instantly just shoot them all. There you go, they're all dead, and the problem solved. From there, it's kind of just rinse and repeat with the mechanics, like the mechanics from the first half. There we have the wave, and as I said, you probably, as we figured, wouldn't have survived the wave if you didn't kill all the orbs in time. But there's also not really enough time to kill all the orbs, so yeah, just use the superpower. And from there on, it's basically just kill him before he kills you. For example, we have the meteors here now. And in the second phase, it's important, you see that on my nose right there. I have 8 stacks when I start walking, and I made the mistake, I walked to the side of the stacks that I already had. So my stacks are getting worse. You kind of want to keep this in mind when you choose the site you're running to, because you could actually very easily kill yourself. And this is pretty much the reason why I chose this footage for the second half, because in this footage is pretty much everything going down south possible. There we have, for example, the meteors again. Now the floor is lava. But what I'm trying to show is that even though he spams a lot of mechanics, it's still, as long as you follow the pattern, possible to complete the boss. Here we have it again, blocks. So what we do ideally, as I said, we go to the side we came from. In this scenario, 2 of our people, we are in voice as you can see, decided to go to this side to balance out, so we have round about the same amount of people on each side. So we're not all gonna get cooked in a second. So we get our lines, we go cleanse, and we hope everyone cleansed. And I'm not sure, I think someone died there. And we directly get the next mechanic, because the boss wants us dead at this point. I can assure you, usually it's not that much of a mess, but as I said, I took the footage to see that it is possible, even if you're only 4 people, like us just now. So what happened here on Troya is what happens when you decide to either like cleanse the circle, or if nobody cleansed it, then they get this damaging circle around them. You kind of just want to keep that in mind, not have that in the party, especially not with the fire one on top of it, because that does a lot of damage. What we have here again is we saw we're gonna get the numbers, so we kind of ran into each other to make sure that someone can save us here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the mechanics on this boss. What I noticed as a healer, what I also told you guys earlier, is that it's very easy to get 30 stacks if you're looking at everyone else, like me for example right now, but not at yourself. Um, in this scenario, I actually got lucky because, let's see, my stacks cleansed here. I had 30 stacks, and then the aggro switches, what instantly deletes my stacks because the boss turns around. But technically, I would have been dead there, simply because my guardian is also already on cooldown, and we're just trying to complete this at this point. We don't have a tank anymore. We have 2 DPS and a healer. But yeah. Okay, let's focus on the third and last boss here as well. What to use, what skills, what guardians can help us here. Our first group is pretty similar, if not identical, to the second boss. We have the Time for Punishment, the Deadly Marker, and the Nature's Blessing on the buff side. With the heals, we have again Swift Healing, Fountain of Life, Flash Arrow, and Clay Salvation. And then on the third group, our utility supportive stuff, we have again the Touch of Despair, the Blitz, and this time again the Ray of Disaster. The Ray of Disaster is back for several reasons. Once, we don't need the Purifying Touch anymore from the second boss. But mainly, the Ray of Disaster can be really helpful in the orb phase on the third boss, because it's hard to target these orbs, and as a healer you're not doing a lot of damage to them anyway, so you're at least trying to be helpful with that thing. And once again, the Ray of Disaster can help get the Deadly Marker up. In our last group, we have the mitigations again, the Invincible Wall and the Blessed Barrier. What I can maybe add here is that if you have the points, or if you decide to snatch the points from somewhere, it makes sense to take the first node on the Swift Healing overall. This is the one that heals yourself for a certain percentage whenever you heal someone else. Because on the last boss there are multiple scenarios where you as the healer take a lot of damage. For example, zombies. For whatever reason, you're always the one who takes the aggro of the zombies, and they're all gonna chop you down. So in case you feel that you're a bit squishy, this definitely makes sense to invest into that one. And that also brings us then to the guardians. Once again, we have the 2 damage supportive ones and the shielding one, and I must say I prefer the shielding one here. Simply because, as I said, as the healer, for whatever reason, you take a shit ton of damage, and the shielding guardian has actually helped me a couple of times trying to survive some stuff that I probably otherwise wouldn't have. Okay, so how do we handle the last boss? It's in a way similar to the first one, that we split the area in half and assign one party to each side together with the people who have numbers on top of their head, like 2, 1 per corner. And every corner then gets 3 people assigned to, since we're 12 people, that kind of sums up. What exactly is their mission? That's going to be relevant later on when there's orb spawning, but for now, it's just we start the fight. We don't hit the boss yet until the Fury attack. And yeah, I usually just start off with a flash wave there to have some heal over time applied on people, some mitigations, and then I march over to where the orb is going to be spawning. It doesn't always work, but I notice the closer I am to the orb, the more likely I am to get pulled, and let's face it, as the healer we're not really helping a lot with the damage, so it might be good if we're the ones pulled. As you can see, 3 on each side, and the people go out and help. And then these circles here spawn. That's one of the reasons why I have my personal pins here and here, because our party does it like counterclockwise to the right. There's parties that do it in the other direction. So our circle has 4 pins on top. What does that mean? Me, as the guy with the number, I'm always gonna go in. So this is the circle of group 1. I'm pin number 1. then the second assigned guy to my side also always goes in, because it can always be 2, 3, or 4. So us 2, we're always in. And then there's one runner per side who goes in if it's everything but not 2. And otherwise, they run in this direction like this to fill up the matching circles. Here, what you kind of just want to look out for is that if people drop low, maybe you drop a flash wave or clays, and you block the Yats. Then when she does this, block, like she turns a bit and you hear some weird noise. And after that, she's gonna pull everyone in, or like some players in for the line mechanic. You can see it here. All you need to do is spread out, break the line. After that, I like to apply some mitigation because there is gonna be lightning. Let's see, who's it on? There. It's in the here. Let's go back a few seconds. Here. On number 2. And the lightning chain, so we like to go a bit further because sometimes it doesn't work with the block. Next up is then side. So it kind of worked out that we already went further because the boss is essentially going to shoot sides to everyone who was close. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to be behind this line here, because with that I rarely get one. And if you're close in this, while she does that, you're pretty much dead. She does some AoE damage and those things do quite some damage. Additionally, you want to make sure you put like a healing circle and a mitigation, and maybe if you have flash wave on the tank, because everyone else is kind of gonna run in circles to kite the side so they don't hit them. But you will see in a second that the tank gets another mechanic. So for the tank, he's just gonna stand there, you had it, the line, and face tank everything. Because this line is gonna chase the tank anyway, and if he runs from the side additionally while he's trying to do that, he's not gonna get the roadblock. So it's just safer for him to stand in it. And everyone else, as you can see, circling around. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, block. Always. If you don't block that, you're gonna get one shot. What I sometimes do there is apply the shielding mitigation, but realistically speaking, people are probably gonna be dead if they don't block this. There. This is something she sometimes does close to the end, or if you do too little or too much damage, is she summons these guys on the edges of the arena, and you see I have this thing on top of my head, which means that they're gonna shoot, oh god, file, yes. Here, let's see if we can see it again. Yeah, they're gonna shoot while I'm standing, so ideally I want to walk out so I don't shoot the party. Realistically speaking, people are always going to shoot the party, so ideally as the healer you want to put a flash wave there and a circle, look here, to just heal through that. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it can sum up, especially if people are low. So yeah, be prepared for that. Especially that's going to come again in this phase. I usually start off with using the flash wave here relatively early on. That also is my demise sometimes because the flash wave blocks the block, but yeah. Because first is a roll block, then is a stationary block, and in our scenario there is now the orbs again. So we are again corner 1, we're gonna go to corner 1. That's why you want to have your pins on the floor, because the area looks different than it did earlier. And here's my second pin, you can see it, so I directly know, oh, okay, this is my circle, it's not here. Same mechanic as earlier, you look how many dots you have, you go in if you're not the runner, if you're the runner, you need to look if you go in or not. stationary block, and after that you want to look out for your hands, like her hands. You want to see which one is glowing, and then you go to the opposite side so you don't get hit by that. After that, follow the instructions, hit the hand. Healer wise, there's not really that much to do. Just make sure everyone is kind of good on health, good on mana. Yes, when she says that, do as I command. You want to go in close, because seconds after you do this, you're gonna run away and then you're gonna run back. The furthest, usually the healer, gets this line. It's a rollblock. And you want to pull that out of the group so they don't get hit by that. Then stationary block, go hide, try to heal everyone up in the meantime. Especially if there's zombies already, make sure you don't get chopped by the zombies. For that, a flash wave is pretty good. Then here, fly, make sure to morph. And yes. Ideally, you can stand in the middle here, like further than we are standing. You can see that right now. Like, I go to around here somewhere, and there's gonna be both hands overlapping, which does some moderate amount of damage, but you will see, and to me at least, it doesn't kill. If you want to play it safe, your group is just gonna stand here and wait until it's over, but usually it doesn't really kill anyone, so we just barge in. There you have it. She pulls us in, and then there's the lines that you want to break and jump. In this phase, you can see there's the zombies already chopping on me. I told you guys earlier, be careful of the zombies. They're adding up. I'm not even sure why they're always targeting the healer. It might be because of the flash wave, but they can be really nasty. So I like to, as you see there, circle around a bit sometimes so they don't completely munch me. There we had it again. Look at the hand, go to the side, the one where the hand is not glowing. And this, just always try to either have the healing circle and the mitigation, or the flash wave up. Either one of the two. That's gonna work out to heal that. I get the far thingy, there's a rollblock. We're kind of repeating the same stuff from earlier. And yes. Go behind the thingy, heal everyone up, ideally with the flash wave. Look, there's already the zombies chopping my health. Slow block, and after this, whoop, she spawns some orbs, 3 on each side. You just walk up to them, you interact with them with F, and then you pull them all the way to somewhere over here and over here. Ideally, honestly, as a healer, I prefer not to do it because it slows you down a lot, and you still have the zombies chasing you, so you're gonna tick down a lot. Plus, as the healer, you're better off healing your party members, so I really only do it if no one does it. For example, here I'm kind of looking, is anyone going to do it? But since we're so close to killing her, we just skipped it. Yeah, and with this we conclude the video on the Hard Calanthia Raid. I hope that helped anyone. Like, you guys got some ideas what to do, what not to do, what to look out for. Of course, I know there's many ways to do this, but I wanted to give you guys at least a starter how we do it. So good luck with that, and if you want to, feel free to subscribe and like, because not gonna lie, editing and recording this video took like half a week. I'm surprised myself. I don't think I'm gonna do this again. But yeah, if it helps someone, at least we did a good deed, I guess.